Which celebrity is not as nice in real life as they seem on screen? Story 1. In the 1990s, Michael Jordan was marketed as the role model basketball player for kids, while Charles Barkley, known for his wild side, famously told kids he wasn't their role model. Today, stories about these two players reveal that MJ wasn't as perfect as he seemed, while Barkley turned out to be one of the friendliest guys in sports. Every story I've heard about Jordan involves him being a bit tough. On the other hand, Barkley is a really swell guy. He once stepped up and tipped a young caddy that Jordan forgot to tip. And when Jordan refused to give rapper Chamillionaire an autograph and used some harsh language, Barkley was there to apologize on Jordan's behalf. It's heartwarming to hear how Charles Barkley always treats people with kindness and respect. I had the pleasure of meeting him at a celebrity golf tournament, and he was a riot. He took the time to chat with fans and take pictures, even though his entourage revealed that he had been partying hard the night before and was nursing a hangover. That guy sets the bar high for awesome celebrities. Some say MJ's attitude has to do with his mustache, like it's giving them historical villain vibes. Story 2. A few years ago, I was hanging out with a coworker friend when we discovered that Demi Lovato was at an event nearby. I wasn't a big fan, but my friend was absolutely crazy about her. She kept raving about how Demi's book had helped her through tough times and inspired her to overcome personal struggles. As luck would have it, Demi strolled in our direction, and my friend excitedly gushed, "OMG, you were my savior during my darkest days." But Demi's reaction was unexpected. She made a face, rolled her eyes, and just walked past us. My friend was crushed and never mentioned Demi again. It can be incredibly painful to be rejected by someone who has helped you through difficult times. I understand that Demi may have her own struggles to deal with, but she could have handled the situation more gracefully. However, the real sting is the void left behind by that person. For me, show the product means a lot, and if I ever met her and she acted the same way, I'm not sure how I'd fill that snow-shaped hole in my life. I feel my friends hurt deeply. Story 3. Jamie Kennedy. Back in 2002, I scored a trip to Miami through a contest by Axe. Thanks to a simple click on an internet banner, yes, they do work, but it came with a hefty $1,200 tax bill. The prize included an exclusive house party at Jamie Kennedy's place. However, when I approached him, he greeted me with a sneer and promptly walked away. On the flip side, Seth Green, who was also in attendance, was incredibly cool. His manager, or whoever she was, initially thought I wanted an autograph and tried to shoo me away. But when I explained that I just wanted to say hi, Seth Green turned around, shook my hand, had a quick chat, gave a little bow, and then continued his conversation, which I had unwittingly interrupted. Now, Bill Nye, though he has shown a bit of a self-centered side in recent years, I can't help but recall a story I heard on a podcast a few months ago. A girl was working at a clothing store and Bill Nye walked in. He ended up at her cash register and she told him, "Hi Bill, I just wanted to say I appreciate what you did for sparking kids' interest in science. I grew up watching your show." Bill's response? And look where that got you. It's fascinating how these encounters can reveal so much about these celebrities. Story 4. Bill Murray is a complex and mysterious celebrity. He's known for being both difficult to work with and incredibly kind to fans. Some say he's a huge jerk, while others insist he's a lovely person. There's no doubt that Murray is a talented actor, but he's also notoriously difficult to work with. His former Groundhog Day co-star, Harold Ramis, refused to work with him again after the film, despite their success together. Murray is known for being unpredictable and demanding. He's also been accused of being rude and disrespectful to his colleagues. However, he's also known for being generous and affable to fans and regular people. One rumor suggests that Lucy Liu's attack on Murray on the set of Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle, is what got Quentin Tarantino interested in her for the role of O-Ren Ishii in Kill Bill. So maybe it worked out for her. Some say that Murray was going through a bad divorce during the filming of Groundhog Day, which may have contributed to his difficult behavior. He also reportedly wanted to go in a different direction with the film and make it more of a drama than a comedy. At one point, he was so difficult to work with that Ramis suggested he get an assistant to make things easier on himself and the crew. Murray's solution? Hire a completely deaf person who only spoke ASL, which no one on set knew. Murray and Ramis patched things up shortly before Ramis passed away. But while Murray may be cantankerous with other actors and people in the industry, he's also known for being generous and affable to fans and regular people. He just seems to have a complete disdain for anyone involved in filmmaking. Story 5. Ellen DeGeneres. According to comedian Greg Fitzsimmons, who previously worked as a writer and producer on The Ellen DeGeneres Show, the famous talk show host is known to turn into a tyrant as soon as the cameras are off. Her staff members are constantly in fear of her, and she tends to yell at everyone. When watching Ellen on her show, it's evident that she comes off as cold. Despite laughing with the guest, she rarely smiles, and when she does, it seems forced. She tends to stare at people with a half smile, and even when she goes to laugh at a joke, it appears insincere. It's only when she's done something like scare a guest that she genuinely laughs or smiles. Even then, it comes across as if she's laughing at them rather than with them. Her eyes, in particular, are dead and give off an eerie feeling. Her physical smile doesn't match the look in her eyes, making her someone who gives off the Captain Syndrome vibe. The bottom half of her face seems warm and inviting, while the top half, her eyes, seem cold and uncaring. That's why I never believe how celebrities act on camera. They're all just putting on a show, man. Story 6. I've had the opportunity to meet James Corden at my workplace 3 times, and each time I've greeted him politely, with a simple, "Hi there, sir, welcome." However, he has not responded even once. He simply glances at me with a neutral face and moves on. There have been several negative stories about James Corden's behavior, indicating that fame has gone to his head. In the UK, many people were surprised when he was chosen to host the late night show, as there were probably better candidates for the job. Personally, I find him dreadful. A friend of mine who has worked on the writing staff of several late night shows has shared some insights with me. According to him, James Corden is an unpleasant person, while Jimmy Fallon is a hopeless alcoholic and not enjoyable to be around. On the other hand, he said that Jimmy Kimmel is a kind and sweet person, and he had no comment on Stephen Colbert. Additionally, he mentioned that Tina Fey was really nice, which is a pleasant surprise. Story 7. Jerry Seinfeld was a regular at the restaurant where I worked as a bartender. One day, he came in for an interview with a magazine. He acted like someone of his caliber, wanting to eat as soon as possible and leave quickly. Whenever someone noticed him, he would wave and keep moving. No one ever bothered him because everyone knew him from the neighborhood. On the day of his interview, he told his server, who had always served him, to scram off when she came back to check on him after dropping off his food. The interview got up and left, and Seinfeld threw up his hands and left soon after. There was no apparent issue with his behavior before, during, or after the incident, which surprised everyone, including Ron Howard, who had just finished his meal. As a bartender, I had a front row seat to this entire ordeal. Story 8. In light of recent events, the following incident seems even more noteworthy. During the summer of 2002, I worked as a security personnel at the MTV Beach House. I witnessed Ja Rule and his entourage in the green room, which was a small and narrow space with a winding staircase. When a production assistant brought Ja Rule a bottle of water, it turned out to be the wrong one, and he became angry. As the PA turned around to get the right water, Ja Rule kicked him in the back of his legs, causing him to tumble down the stairs. I was stationed at the front of the house and heard yelling and commotion, followed by a cascade of water bottles rolling down the stairs along with the PA. Story 9. I once met Usher at a party, but he turned out to be one of the rudest and most diva-like people I've ever encountered. We were both visiting the UK at the time and had a mutual friend who invited us. Despite the dress code being a black tie, Usher showed up in a t-shirt and a hoodie. I tried to make small talk with him about his time in the country, but mid-conversation, he asked me what made me think I could approach him. Later, another guy asked Usher for a picture, but he declined and told him to go get another drink instead. This behavior was unexpected since everyone else was taking selfies at the party. When the host found out about Usher's rudeness, he confronted him. Usher stayed for about 30 minutes before leaving. After this encounter, I spoke to the other people who had met him, and it turned out that his behavior was quite common. Yeah, that kind of attitude will lead to the fall of the House of Usher. Did you like these behind-the-scenes stories about celebrities? If so, give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Story 10. I have a friend who is a celebrity and is often perceived as rude in public. However, they explain that it's due to the constant interruptions they face every day, with rare exceptions. People, regardless of how private or important the situation may be, always want something from them. They initially try to be nice, but eventually the pushy people get to them. Those who chase them tell them their life stories or get angry when they're tired and want to be left alone. It's difficult to have breakfast or a cup of coffee without it turning into a media event. I won't reveal my friend's name, it's a secret. What kind of friend would I be if I named names? To those who say that's the price of fame, let's look at it differently. Fame is a side effect of turning your passion into a career and working hard enough to be successful. Countless people in diverse fields are famous for being among the best in their respective areas, such as innovators like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, actors like Tom Cruise and Glenn Close, singers like Taylor Swift and Tom Petty, scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Mae Jemison, or politicians. I'm not touching that one. You could become famous for being the best at what you do. As a celebrity, it's understandable to be rude to pushy people interrupting your breakfast. However, being rude and unforgiving to your assistants, producers, and people you work with who are trying to cater to your needs and make you comfortable says a lot more about you as a person. Story 11. I've had the opportunity to work with some celebrities, and I have to say, some of them really surprised me. Luke Bryan was disrespectful towards my crew and constantly cursed at them. On the other hand, Post Malone was super cool and thanked all of us. I even got to meet and hang out with him since I'm friends with his brother. He was such a sweet and goofy dude. Post Malone was so committed to his fans that he was late for his own show because he was signing autographs outside the venue beforehand. However, I was shocked to hear that Matt Lauer was apparently a horrendous. A family member of mine who worked at NBC said that Lauer was allegedly a petty tyrant and gave off creepy vibes back in 2011-ish. Dr. Rick Marshall said, Matt Lauer can have it. It's not all bad news though. My family member also said that Conan was one of the nicest celebrities she's ever met. Overall, some of these stories could just be down to a celebrity having a bad day. But then again, some of them could just be consistently dirtbags every day. Story 12. My buddy was at the Roxy watching some live music, and Chad Kroeger from Nickelback was in front of him. Someone yelled, "Nickelback sucks!" and Kroeger thought it was my buddy. He turned around and hit him. My friend woke up to find that he had been punched by Chad Kroeger, which was a huge blow to his ego, but also a hilarious story. When he came to, he apparently said, "But I like Nickelback." Long story short, he settled the case out of court because Nickelback was about to go on tour and Chad couldn't get stuck in Canada fighting the case, or worse. Ow. That guy really got nickeled and dimed by Nickelback. Story 13. I worked as a security guard at a local concert venue for more than 10 years, and Alicia Keys stood out as one of the least friendly artists I ever crossed paths with. One night, I was asked to stay back and assist with a meet and greet in the catering trailer after her show. I stood next to Alicia and her assistant around 2006 while she greeted a group of fans one by one. Each fan brought gifts or flowers and had about 30 seconds to say hello. I was close enough to overhear what she was saying to her assistant, and it wasn't pleasant. She spent most of the time criticizing the group, nitpicking about their outfits and appearances. It's been a while, so let's hope she's grown since then. She also had a romantic involvement with her husband, Swiss Beats, who was still married to his wife at the time. Additionally, she had just welcomed a baby. On another note, my wife worked with Kate Beckinsale, and apparently she didn't come across as very friendly. However, she also worked with Terry Crews, and I had a pleasure of meeting him a few times. He's just as delightful and positive as he appears. According to my parents, Terry Crews and his wife are amazing. They used to attend the same church as Crews in Michigan, and every Christmas, the Crews would visit and meet their fans. My mom met him and said he was incredibly kind. Story 14. Christian Bale gained quite a reputation for losing his cool while filming Terminator Salvation. During that time, he came across as a complete hothead and acted pretty unpleasant when he went off on some guy who was trying to assist on set, even throwing around curses and threats. But here's where the plot takes an interesting turn. After the incident, Bale stepped up and apologized, explaining that he was attempting to channel a sense of madness for his role as John Connor, and felt a lot of regret about how he treated his colleague. Additionally, a bunch of actors and directors have spoken up since, sharing how much they appreciate working with Bale. They admire his dedication to his roles and believe that the incident doesn't represent how he normally collaborates with others. So it seems the script has been flipped. While he may have been seen as a major hothead, in reality, he sounds like a genuinely good guy to work with. Story 15. I'll never forget the time Jennifer Lawrence shared this wild story about using sacred rocks to scratch an itch in Hawaii. She ended up accidentally dislodging one and nearly causing an accident. She told the story on TV with a grin, like it was just another quirky and relatable story. It seemed pretty genuine coming from her. I'm not sure if she ever apologized, but at that point it feels more like damage control. Reportedly, Chris Pratt appeared pretty uncomfortable when he heard the story. I think this happened during the PR tour of Passengers. My initial disapproval of her dates back to a specific video. She acted all self-important and it didn't sit right with me. The guy she was talking to was glancing at his questions on his phone, and she made him so nervous that he mistakenly said Oscars instead of Golden Globes. That resulted in some people chuckling at his mistake. Many folks see her as relatable, but in reality, she seems to think she's above everyone else. It's no surprise she's pals with Ellen DeGeneres and Amy Schumer. Imagine scratching your bum on the Stonehenge or the Statue of Liberty's toes. That's just as outrageous, Jennifer Lawrence. Story 16. One of my friend's parents had roles as extras in Legally Blonde 2. According to them, Sally Field doesn't come across as a very pleasant person. On the flip side, they mention that Reese Witherspoon is an absolute joy to work with. I had the opportunity to work on a movie in which Reese Witherspoon both starred and produced. She was incredibly kind. At the end of the shoot, she even surprised us with thoughtful gifts. Another person I know had a backstage encounter with Adam Levine, and they were a bit miffed because they told him, "You guys are really good." Adam's response was a nonchalant, "I know," and he strolled away. I found it amusing because this person took it so personally. Chances are he simply didn't appreciate being lied to. Story 17. I'm not sure if he's a nice guy, but Shia LaBeouf left me with a pretty negative impression. I used to work security for a company that organized movie screenings and provided security for actors during Q&A sessions. I had an encounter with Shia in this movie, Man Down, and we all decided to leave him to his own devices. He was constantly yelling and using foul language, so we decided to call it quits and walked away. Now, I hate to speak ill of the deceased, but Whitney Houston used to frequent a place where I worked as a bartender. She'd shoot me dirty looks as if I was trying to steal her man whenever I delivered a drink that Bobby had ordered. I mean, I'm far from being a heartthrob, it's just my job. She also made repeated attempts to smoke at the bar, even though we had recently enacted strict no-smoking laws in Georgia. To top it off, she consistently left me a $3 tip on both a $94 tab and a $300 tab. She was one tough customer. May she rest in peace. Story 18. My grandfather had an interesting encounter with Frank Sinatra at the blackjack table once. All my grandpa did was sit down, and Sinatra promptly called him an unpleasant name. They say Sinatra had a notoriously short fuse, and when it came to Andy Griffith, he had a penchant for firing warning shots at trespassers on his property. My grandpa, who lived nearby, claimed that Andy had a habit of taking pot shots at folks. On a different note, I can assure you that Sully from Godsmack might be up for a scuffle if you were to ask him for an autograph while addressing him as Scott Stapp. It seems there's a whole generation of people who might not be aware of Scott Stapp's reputation. In short, he had a reputation as a messy drinker who made a spectacle of himself in public on numerous occasions. His bandmates even parted ways with him because of it. By rock star standards, that's quite a significant behavior issue when your own bandmates can't stand your antics anymore. Yep, that's something to take note of. Having talent and skills isn't a free pass to be an obnoxious main character. Story 19. Dane Cook is a real pain in the neck. My uncle and I were part of a crew moving stage equipment for one of his stand-up shows. We were specifically instructed by management not to approach him or even make eye contact if we saw him. One of our crew members tried to stop him backstage to ask for an autograph, and Dane had him immediately fired and escorted off the premises. On the other hand, we worked a show for Taylor Swift, and she bought everyone donuts and fried chicken with her own money. She also came back to meet and greet everyone and tell us we were doing a good job. She seemed like a nice person all around. To hell with Dane Cook. I would never work for him again, even if I had the chance. He just seems like a complete dirtbag. These stories are a reminder that it's often best not to meet your heroes, unless your hero is Tom Hanks, Keanu Reeves, or Hugh Jackman. Story 20. My friend who lives in LA works as a server. She had Bradley Cooper as one of her customers, and she mentioned that he was quite unpleasant throughout the entire meal, making her feel uncomfortable. Maybe he was just having a bad day. It's quite surprising how much response this story garnered. I shared it with my friend in LA, and she added that despite Bradley's behavior, he did leave her a generous tip. On a different note, I once had a job with Emma Watson, and the requirements in her ride were, well, a bit over the top. It included specific temperature requests to the nearest tenth of a degree and more. I prepared myself for the worst, as I'm somewhat accustomed to these situations. But when Emma arrived, she turned out to be one of the friendliest celebrities I've ever met. It may not directly answer the question, but it's the first thing that came to mind. Story 21. You know that guy from Dumb and Dumber, Jeff Daniels? Well, he lives right next door to my cousins, and it's safe to say he's not exactly the favorite neighbor in their community. He seems to have this assumption that everyone's going to swarm him, asking for autographs or whatever, so he keeps his distance from everyone. He's been living next to my cousins for over 15 years, and they've barely had a handful of conversations with him. One of my favorite stories is about my grandpa, who once found himself sitting next to Jeff Daniels in a bar and decided to strike up a friendly conversation. Unfortunately, Jeff wasn't in the mood for it and swiftly left. The bartender comforted my grandpa, telling him not to take it personally as Jeff doesn't really chat with his fans. My grandpa's response? Wait, who was that guy? It turned out he had never heard of Jeff Daniels. He was just trying to be friendly. Story 22. During the filming of Talladega Nights, Will Ferrell had a meal at a Charlotte restaurant with some of the production crew, including John C. Reilly. The story goes that whenever the waitress approached Will, he refused to make eye contact or speak directly to her. Instead, he would glance at someone else and say, "Could you please tell the lady that I'd like this?" John C. Reilly, on the other hand, seemed rather embarrassed by the situation and tried to compensate by being exceptionally courteous to the restaurant staff. It's disheartening to learn this side of the story. If I were there, I'd probably be laughing in the kitchen. It's like seeing his face reminded me of his goofball role in The Step Brothers. So you've made it to the end. I bet you'll enjoy this person is on another level of stupid story. I really cracked up at story 2. Don't miss it.